Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin, and I have my brother Josh on the other end.
Hi, I'm Josh.
Welcome to our podcast. This is our second podcast. We finally have a name. I think it's fitting. Again, this is not a Dragon Ball podcast, but it's kind of fitting because again, we grew up with Dragon Ball. What do you say about that, Josh?
Yeah, no, it's definitely for me. The Cell Saga is something that I grew up with, and I have that's the most recollection I have. So for
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, we like Dragon Ball, we like Super Saiyan, Super Saiyajins. We will go ahead and continue our best villain ever talk. So we're going to be talking today about the Cell Saga and also the Majin Buu Saga. And then I believe for the next one, we're going to be talking about Dragon Ball GT villains, and finally, which would be the fifth part, would be about Dragon Ball Super. I think it should be enough, but if plans always might change, but at the meanwhile, we'll start talking with the Cell Saga. So, the Cell Saga comprises of Android 19, 20, then it's 17 and 18 and 16, and then Cell, Semi Perfect Cell, and Perfect Cell, and Super Cell. So, let's go ahead and start with number 19, which is the fat Android. What do you think about number 19, Josh?
So when we're talking about design,
Yes.
I thought the design of 19 was pretty good. Or I'm sorry, 16. It's Android 16, right?
No, no. So the fat one is 19. 16 is
Oh,
the
I'm
huge
sorry.
one.
I drew a blank really quick. All right. Yeah, 19, 19. Yeah. So 19, I thought the design of 19 was pretty cool. I thought that it was easily the most different out of all of them because he was fully robotic. So I think that's the only android that wasn't human, right? That had been oh, besides 16.
Well, yeah, I mean, I believe that's correct. What is 19 and 16 because 20 was Dr. Giro, and supposedly, from what I remember, 17 and 18, yes, there were humans before. And 16, yeah, I mean, spoilers, but you kind of realize that yes, it was basically just chips at the end of the saga. So, yeah. So, 19 for me, and I think I this is kind of a power for all of the androids, but it is a little bit more notorious within androids 19 and 20, which is energy absorbing power, because on both 19 and 20 they have their little orbs on their hands. But for me, yes, 19 is very interesting in design. It was a little bit weird, but not in the bad sense. Um, yeah, definitely. I think you do remember that, even though he does get completely obliterated by Vegeta. But yeah, I mean, maybe not the best of all the Android designs, but
I thought
definitely
he was
not
cool.
bad.
I genuinely thought he was cool. 19 had even like a creepy voice and all that.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I thought it was a cool character, and the way Vegeta destroyed him was even better. So
Yeah, so in design, I think I would maybe give it like a 7, 7.5.
yeah, yeah, design was up there. I'd give it the same 7.5.
And then, well, for the story, I mean, it or context. Well, it was a nice introduction. He was introduced at the same time as Dr. Zero, or number 20.
Yep.
So it was context-wise. It was, now that I'm trying to recollect of what happened. Yes, it was very interesting. Or it was good, a good setting of a plot, because what happened. So putting the context now, it was just after the fight of Frieza versus Goku, and I really, I mean, do we need to talk about Cyber Frieza, or because
Mike
technically
Friedman,
he's essentially part of the
the
Cell
Android
Saga because I mean he kind of that's why Trunks appears and
Yeah,
he is the major
he's part of the Android saga.
yeah, I mean it was. Do you want to speak about Frieza, so the Cyber Frieza or whatever it's called
Yeah,
here?
Mecha
Mecha
Frieza.
Frieza.
So I mean, we can. I think that I thought it lays the grounds for what's to come. So I think yeah,
I mean, it's still Frieza, and we didn't talk about it in the Frieza saga because I mean, yes, it's part of the Cell saga. But I mean, yes, we can go ahead and talk briefly about it. The design, I really didn't like the design of Mecha Frieza. I mean, it was cool that he was still alive. But to be honest, like,
he just never dies.
yeah, I mean yeah, I mean he just they reconstructed him, but the way that they reconstructed him, to me it was. I mean, I guess that was the point, that it was just like spare parts, and I mean that's what resulted. That was like what was left. But the design wise, I really didn't like it. But when I was a kid, I was super excited that Frieza was still alive, and then at the same time, I was like, oh no, well now he's alone with the rest of the crew that have died millions of times, and
I still thought it was really cool how he. I remember when because Piccolo kind of announces it. Like he's here, and then like the ship comes down. I thought that was pretty cool. The entrance he made.
hmm
Frieza's entrances have always been really cool. Even in the movie,
hmm
it's kind of going off track a little bit, but even in that movie, the Broly movie, his entrance was really cool.
hmm yeah, and they also introduced King Cold, which it's like for King Cold for me, I think it was a cooler part, and no pun
Why do you think
intended.
that?
Because it's like, oh, it's not only him, it's not only like a defective Frieza, but there's also like, I mean, that's kind of like he looked like he was just like spare parts for me. Like he was look using like a part of his armor as yeah.
He was returned Frieza.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. It was just like super weird for me. And but there's then a King Cold, which is basically the second form of Frieza. It's like, oh, so there's two of them, and there's no Goku in sight. So yeah, I mean, design-wise, I didn't like the design. Context-wise, I did like it a lot. Then for me, the best character in Dragon Ball was introduced, which is Trunks. And again, we're just going to get a little bit out of we're already sidetracking, so we might as well.
Just have it.
And it's technically still within the timeline. Well, it actually is within the timeline,
Yeah.
literally, because it's Trunks. Because for me, Trunks is the character that does things. So, and maybe if he was the main character, it wouldn't be interesting because he actually gets things done. He doesn't let things escalate unless someone impedes him of doing stuff. So I might be going into a little bit of spoilers here, but like for example, and this is super spoilers, and this is Dragon Ball, whatever includes Trunks spoilers. So if you want to skip it, it might be taking like a couple of minutes, maybe like a minute or so. So and I don't want to give too much because this is still about the androids that I want to talk a lot about. But Trunks gives a lot of meaning to the Cell Saga. For me, if it wasn't for Trunks and if it wasn't for Android 17 and 18, a lot of it, a lot of its power or strength in the Cell Saga would have
I just
been
I don't
lost.
think it would have made sense if Trunks didn't show up because he's the one who explained that they were going to be there and why.
hmm
You didn't get a lot of explanation from the other androids why they were there. Briefly from Doctor Gero, but that's pretty much just he pretty much explained like that they were androids. Like that's pretty much it.
Actually, yeah, I kind of changed my mind, so I'm just gonna say that Trunks does things, and then I'll go ahead and talk about the other androids, and then I can go ahead and explain
Yeah.
later on. So
Okay.
let's go back for 19 and 20. So context-wise, Trunks defeats defeats Frieza, defeats King Cold, and then he meets Goku and gang, and then he tells them the androids are going to arrive. And well,
And then
they're
also, which is important, is that he tells them about the future disease that killed the heart disease that killed him in
yeah,
his future.
and that he had to take his medicine, which was grape flavored, and
Really? I don't remember that.
well, that's actually Team Four Star.
Oh,
Yeah, that was a reference to Team Four Star.
oh, okay.
Um, but yeah, so they tell him that he's Trunks tells Goku that he's going to die if he doesn't take his medicine, and yeah, that the androids are going to arrive within a few years. So then time passes, Trunks leaves, the androids arrive, and well, it's 19 and 20. At that point, they don't know that those are not the androids, but context-wise, I think that it's very important because you're like, oh, okay, so these are the androids. They're pretty powerful. They almost kill Yamcha. Um,
That's what's natural. Any enemy can almost kills Yamcha.
yeah, I mean, poor Yamcha. Uh, and
Yeah,
it, in
he,
Dragon Ball, he was more important, I swear, and the original Dragon Ball.
yeah, he
Um,
got blown up in the Saiyan saga, stabbed, and through like I think what is it? Or was that in? No, never mind. That's the other story arc where he gets like stabbed all the way through his chest.
no, no, that's
That's in the movie. That's in the Trunks History of Trunks movie. My
no,
bad.
no, no, no. That's it. That's also. I mean, isn't this the one where they blow like a hole in Yamcha? Is that what you're talking about?
No, in the History of Trunks movie, like he literally takes his hand and then just punches it straight through him.
Yeah, but who does it?
Doctor Hero does.
Yeah, yeah, that happens in the actual saga.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
my
so
bad. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
just
yeah, so
confused.
that definitely happened. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
but then I'm kind of like it's been a while since I've watched it, but I think they give him like a sensu bean. Um, um,
Senzu bean.
yeah. So yeah, I mean context wise, 19 and 20 were very important. Design wise, again, for me it's okay. 19 was okay. 20 is like also like for me design wise it's like a 7 or a 6.5. Just the 19, the fat one, is a little bit more interesting because of the color schemes. Because he's a little bit more different-ish as opposed to 20, which looks kind of like an old man with powers. So it's not
Oh
like.
yeah, Doctor Hero. I mean, well, I feel like you got what you'd think.
Hmm.
Doctor Hero. That's how I felt about it. I give it like a 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he was important, obviously. Context-wise, he was very important because he was like the one who created the androids. So yeah, I mean, overall, I think he is. I mean, he's decent. He's a context-wise is much more relevant that design-wise. Overall, I think that I mean they served their purpose, obviously. But now we're going to like the real deal, which is 17 and 18, and to a lesser extent 16. So for me, and I told you this last time out of the podcast, but for me, 17 and 18 as a character, design, context wise, overall in the story arc, they outshine Cell. For me, these
Well,
these characters are like the pillar of the Cell Saga. So the reason the Cell Saga is good, in my opinion, is because of 17 and 18. And
they're essentially the pieces of the puzzle. Like you can't have Cell without the androids.
but it could have been the other way around. So you can have 17 and 18 without Cell because
Ooh, nah, I don't think so.
yes, well actually, and again I might be misremembering, but all of these are like facts slash factoids. But it's the same thing like for for Frieza, for example, when they were like in the manga, there was the supervisors for Akira Toriyama,
Yeah.
and like they would tell him like, "Oh, Frieza, it doesn't look good enough," and or we want something more and more and more and more. And personality-wise, like apparently, and kind of just kind of like how he looks like some of the aspects were taken from the boss of Akira Toriyama, or like the supervisor, one of the supervisors for the manga.
Really?
Yeah, and that also happened with the Cell Saga. So essentially, it was only going to be 17 and 18, and that was it. But I mean, the supervisor would tell him always like, "Oh, well, you need to add more." So he added Cell, and then he was like, "Oh, you still need to add more," and so he was like, semi-perfect Cell, and so on. And then they were like, "Oh, they were keep on pushing," and then they like go ahead and went with Cell. So at one point, it was thought it was going to be 17 and 18. And to be honest, I mean, for me, I could definitely see that because so 17 and 18 are the key portion of the saga because of Trunks. So as you said, Trunks is the one that tells them that some androids are going to come from the future and they're going to go ahead and basically destroy everything. So I think I might. I'm not sure if I'm right in this one, but I think that the movie for 17 and 18 is the only movie that is canon. Because all of the other movies, like Lord Slug, um, um, let's see, who else?
Isn't there like a super android something?
Oh no, but that's from that's. Are you talking about Super 17?
Yeah.
Super
Oh no, no,
7?
no, that's GT.
What?
No, isn't that GT?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So I'm not
No,
sure.
I'm
Are you
talking
talking
about the other
about the
one.
other androids?
Yeah, no, I'm talking about like the ones that like merge into this blue, red, red-haired android that like Goku destroyed with Hanky Dama.
Oh yeah. So that no no yeah that's non-canon. So like all the movies are non-canon. Like all of Janemba,
Yeah,
yeah, Gogeta until the Broly movie was also non-canon.
which they made the right move to make him canon.
Well, at the same time, it's kind of when I mean I don't mind, but when people are like, oh well, Super doesn't make sense because well Vegito, the Patari earrings, and more. I'm going maybe a little bit in spoiler territory, so spoilers. But in Dragon Ball Super for the Samus arc, Vegito. Well, they use the Patari earrings, they fuse, and a lot of people got angry because they defused, and they're like, "Well, this is a retcon, and why did they do this? And this is blah blah blah." But I mean, if you want to talk about, and a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, Gogeta the best," but at that point, so Gogeta is non-canon, and I'm not sure. And again, I might be misremembering. I'm gonna say this a lot because it's been quite a while that I haven't seen Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, and which I really want to buy the Spanish dubs. I'm already looking for them, but they only kind of have it in DVD, and I want it a little bit higher quality. But well, that beats the point. But so Gogeta, do you remember when they were teaching the fusion?
The fusion dance, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the fusion dance, when they were teaching that, do you remember why not all of them could fuse? Do you remember if there were any rules regarding the fusion dance? Because if I'm not mistaken, the power level should be similar and
They
also the
yeah.
height.
Oh, I don't know about the height. I do know the power level. They have to they have to be the same power level. So the way that they defeated that, because I think Trunks at the time was a little bit when they were teaching Trunks and Goten, the fusion dance. They had Trunks was a little stronger than Goten, so Trunks had to maintain his power level
Hmm.
and then or lower it, and then Goten had to raise it, and then they'd be level.
Yeah, but also I remember because, and that's why I even remember that they used kind of like a joke because that Krillin and Piccolo were kind of like teaching the dance thing
Uh,
And I remember that at some point it was mentioned that they have to be similar heights as well. And I mean, like Vegeta and Goku are not exactly similar heights. So that's another thing. And I mean, I don't know. I'm glad that they made it canon, but there's sometimes things that people get mad because it something doesn't make sense, but then they do like other things even though it doesn't make sense. But I mean, it's because they bring something into canon. So I don't know. So yeah, going back, I just strayed a little bit away. That something that sometimes puts makes me a little bit mad about those type of things. But going back to the non canon thing. So for all the movies are considered non canon during that time,
mhm.
and they did. I believe this is technically not a movie. I think it was like a special dash ova, and where they explain the Gohan slash Trunks of the future. So, did you ever watch that one or no?
Which one?
So where they're like in the future, and Android 17 and 18 are causing like a lot of like trouble.
Isn't that the history of Trunks?
I'm not sure if that's how it's called in English.
You mean the one the like the one that is about Trunks's history, like the one that basically Gohan is missing an arm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's the history of Trunks.
Okay, so that's how it's called in English. Okay.
Yeah,
So with that one, it's like how and again spoilers like 20 years ago.
yeah,
But in that movie, Gohan dies, and then that's how Trunks transforms into the Super Saiyan.
yep,
And there was like a lot of weight put into Android 17 and 18. And then also the resolution. It's mainly when like Cell is defeated and undone. For me, when I was a kid, I was like, okay, so Trunks can return and can destroy the androids. And when he does destroy them and pretty easily, it's like super satisfying. And he also kills Cell, but it's when he kills Cell, it's like whatever. But for me, where it's like the most weight is 17 and 18 because they put so. I think this is one of the few times that it actually happened. That the Dragon Ball actually put a little bit. Dragon Ball Z put a little bit of his like lore into something and like backstory. And for me as a kid or as a teen, I was like so invested that Trunks and 17 and 18 and what he would do. So for me, what takes the cake out of the whole Cell saga is 17 and 18. Their personality were super cool. The design was it definitely stood out, even though they looked like humans. The actual like the clothing, um, it was
Well, I mean,
very
at the end of the day, they were they were or they used to be regular humans that were turned into
no, yeah. But what I'm referring to is to like the actual design, how it turned out, how they turned out looking.
yeah,
So, I mean, they look, yes, they do look like regular humans, like, but for example, uh, I mean, again, 16 technically isn't a human, but if you look at him, he does look humanoid, but he does have also like a weirdish design. So, and it's like Dr. Gero. I think Dr. Gero is a fair comparison because Dr. Gero is also or was also a human, but and like he has like his cap thing at like his brain or
yeah.
whatever. So they could have like done something a little bit more like out there, so they could be like, oh, it's a monster or whatever. But they made them just like basically humans with superpowers. They removed the spheres from their hands, but they can still technically absorb energy. Um, but yeah, I mean, they were like really cool in design. They story wise, they're the ones who made basically that saga important. Because for me, I mean, Cell was like okay. I mean, original Cell was. I mean, yes, it's menacing. I didn't, and I think I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but I'll just go ahead and say it like super quick. At first, I didn't like all of the designs of Cell, and story wise, again, it's for me. If you ended it with the 17 and 18, I would have been able to call it a day.
Uh, hmm, I don't know. I disagree with that. I think that
So
for
like,
me, what made that saga for me was Gohan becoming a Super Saiyan 2, and then essentially taking the role of the main protagonist um, of the story. I think that's what made it for me.
and
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 17 and 18 were kind of minor in that sense.
and don't get me wrong, like the Gohan moment was super cool by itself, like as in a singular event, but like story wise, again for me, and I understand for you that you're saying that the Gohan was like really important, which don't get me wrong, it was a very important part of the history of Dragon Ball. But for me, yeah, 17 and 18 definitely brought like the most interesting part because again of Trunks and now that we're talking about 17 and 18. Now I can say that for Trunks is always like the doer because again, who's the one that kills 17 and 18? Like it's Trunks. Then going to Super, who's the one that prevents Majin Buu from appearing in his line? Well, Trunks. Trunks actually uh, prevents Dabura and Bobby D from reviving Majin Buu. While in the regular timeline, Vegeta and Goku were like just oh yeah let this happen because this is interesting. And again, story wise, it obviously makes more sense because as someone who is like okay yeah let's watch a series, you want to see like all the bad guys and get it worse and worse and worse, and then so they can beat the baddest of bad guys.
Really, really quick. I didn't know this. How does Trunks prevent Majin Buu being?
Oh, you didn't
Killed?
know?
No,
You didn't? Have you watched Super? Did you
I
watch the
have like,
Samas?
only bits and pieces.
Oh, okay. Okay, so okay, well, here's some spoilers. Um, it's pretty brief to be honest. So essentially, after uh, Trunks destroys 17 and 18, the world, his timeline is a little bit peaceful, slightly ish, but then, well, the timeline continues. So there's Bobby D appears with Dabura, and even though in the regular timeline they appear because they sense a great energy, but at that point, like in Trunks' timeline, like everybody was kind of like dead except Trunks. But Bobby D still appears with Dabura, and well, in this timeline, what is the Supreme Kaiosama, which I believe in English is like Shin. Well, it's
No, no. So in English, it's Supreme Kai.
okay, Supreme Kai. Yeah, because in Spanish is the Supreme Kaioshin.
I mean, his name is Shin, but like nobody says that.
Okay. Well, with this, what happens is that he is alive in Trunks' timeline. He also appears. He trains how to beat Dabura. Like he is taught like a secret technique, and he like deflects the spit of Dabura, and he kills Dabura. He kills Dabura and Babidi before they're able to gain collect the energy for Majin Buu. And it's like a fifth like a I want to say like 30 to a minute recap, 30-second to a minute recap.
Wow, I'm
But
gonna
it's
need to watch that.
pretty cool. Because yeah, I think that and the Supreme Kai dies teaching him that technique.
Oh,
But yeah, yeah. I mean, he learns the technique and he kills Dabura before they're able to show up to revive Majin Buu.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, I mean for me, Trunks is the one that goes to the point. So again, obviously, if he was maybe the main character, it wouldn't be so interesting because he prevents everything. But yeah, like he once he learns things, he wants to avoid them, and he doesn't want like to play around and see what's gonna happen. No, he
He's not a
just
real fan.
yeah. So he's like let's. He's not a Saiyan because even like Gohan would do those mistakes. Like oh yeah, I'm even with like the Cell saga. Uh, which I think we're jumping a little bit ahead, but still, it's like, oh, I'm going to do the same thing that all the Saiyans do. Trunks is kind of like the exception.
He's the anti-Saiyan.
Yeah, I mean, even in the Cell Saga, he was like the only one that is like, let's go ahead and do this. Let's do this now
Yeah,
because
yeah, like don't let him transform. And then
yeah, like
Vegeta's
yeah,
like,
let's go ahead and
no,
let him
I
transform.
want to beat him at his best.
Yeah. So, yeah, for me, for design wise, they're very iconic. I like the designs a lot. It does resemble what would be a red ribbon army. Well, I think that's how it's called in English, right? Because
Yeah,
in Spanish it's La Patrulla Roja, which is the Red Patrol. But yeah, like if you look to Dragon Ball, it for me it encapsulates. It looks a lot like General Blue, which I'm pretty sure you don't know who that is, but for me it kind of looks like that that dude. So yeah, I like them a lot. I'm going to say that design wise, I'm going to give them like a an 8.5 because I know it's a little bit of bias because there are better designs. But I'm going to give them like an I want to say like an 8.5. Yeah.
yeah. I'll give him like a good 8. I think a solid 8. That's where I like the designs.
Okay, so now let's go ahead and move on to the cells. So just the regular cell. Uh, to be honest, again, when I saw initially as a kid, I didn't like cell. I didn't like Cell's design a whole lot. I mean, the power was definitely terrifying. That he would like be able to absorb uh, people like.
And when he absorbed that fat guy,
Mhm. So actually, when I was like a teen, kind of like a teen for that, when I would see like what he would do, it was scary. But the actual design, like the mouth for me, it was like something was always off about the mouth. It looked like a little bit weird. It's maybe it's just that I don't like when they do that when for the designs for that type of shape and color. But it seems like it's like a very popular color. I'm thinking that all of that was designed by Akira Toriyama. Um, but I don't know. Like the orange thing that has is like kind of like an oval or an ellipse. I don't know.
I think it reminds me of. Do you remember the coin on Meowth's?
Yeah.
That's what that reminds me of.
Yeah, for me it just reminds me like an armor part, like a Saiyan armor part, like the pads, the shoulder pads.
Yeah,
And I don't know. For me, I don't like that. But the power was definitely cool. So, context-wise, I mean, he was basically the emergency plan of Doctor Zero, or to like to get the perfect form. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm going to give Cell like a 7, like
well,
the normal
so
Cell.
the first form.
Yeah, the first form.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. 7. I didn't like it either.
And then going to the next form, which I mean I like even less. The face was weird, was still weird. Uh, and power wise, yes, he was powerful for what like 1 or 2 episodes, and then like Vegeta comes out and like destroys a semi-perfect cell. Yeah, I don't know, like just the designs. I the the overall the face is super off. It looks like very weird for me. Um, I didn't like the design either. Context wise, I believe again it's kind of shows that it's still developing. So if you look at the three forms, kind of makes sense that it's still not a perfect form, so it's still changing. But design wise, no, I didn't like it.
I think it made sense. I think that he looked more human. Like he was looking more and more human with every
I,
Android
I
Sword.
mean, I mean humanoid, yeah, yeah, I do agree with that. But still, I don't know. They could have done something. I don't know, like a slight.
Because you can't make him have hair.
No,
So
no. I mean, maybe not hair, but I kind of get that again. It's kind of like an in between, and it's turning more humanoidish.
yeah,
But I don't know. There's something off about it that I don't like. So
maybe he was a little too like muscular and too
for me,
bulky.
it's like the face. The face
Really?
looks, yeah, the face looks like really weird. Like he has like a super, unless I'm remembering incorrectly, but like the nose was like super odd.
I don't know. I thought I don't know. It made sense to me.
Yeah, for me again, what it brought like the super chunky Saiyan forms, which I guess it, that was cool, but it turns out it was
I
useless.
didn't like those. I didn't like those at all. Those forms. I hated them.
Do you like Broly?
I like Broly, but the he was the
That's
only one that.
essentially it.
But
That's
but he was actually like Broly. Actually, was it wasn't slow. Like it.
yeah. I mean, but what I'm asking is, do you like the design of how Broly looks?
I thought that Broly's was like to a ridiculous point, which what made it cool.
Answer the
But
question.
no, I'm telling you, I'm answering it. Like it, it, I think that it made sense for Broly because he was massive, like he
And
was a big dude, and Vegeta and Trunks were not.
but do you know why I'm asking you that?
Why?
Because apparently that's what because you do know that like Akira Toriyama didn't design Broly, right?
I'm sure he didn't.
Okay, so he didn't do that. The original design he didn't have anything to do with Broly, and but the person who was in charge did was inspired by by that form, more specifically by Trunks. So the Trunks super form, and if you look at it and you just take Trunks, Super Trunks pupils, that's basically Broly, like the
Yeah,
Super Broly.
that makes sense. Yeah, I see
So
it.
that's why I liked it a lot. I mean, it looked really cool. Obviously, it was a useless form because it had a lot of power but not a lot of speed. But still, for me, that looked cool. So I was like, I guess that's uh, when the first time I saw it, it's like, okay, so this is where it's going. This is like Super Saiyan 2. This is cool. But yeah, turns out it was the equivalent of Super Saiyan 3 of that time. So yeah, I mean, I didn't like the design. I didn't like semi-perfect cell either. So I'll go ahead and give it like a 6.5 out of 10.
Ooh, I wasn't a big fan of it either. I thought it made sense. Thought it was all right. I'll give it like a 7.5.
Okay. And then finally, we're going to perfect form to cell perfect cell, and at the same time, the super perfect cell because they're essentially the same thing. So the only thing that changes is that super perfect cell survived the blast and no longer needs number 18. But that's basically the only difference. So that form, that one makes more sense. It does look like a more realized form, which again, what you said that is basically the point, and yes, I do agree with that. So this form I did like. I like the powers. Context wise, does make a very important one of the most important scenes of Dragon Ball. So yeah, the actual design of Cell. I did like. I did like the perfect form,
Perfect.
perfect
Yeah.
cell.
Hmm.
I don't know. What about you?
That was again, that, like you said, that's my favorite. That's my favorite form. I think like it was really cool. I just think I don't know. I don't know. It changed enough for it to look like it. He looked like a villain. He looked like a smart villain. Like that's. I think like what was cool about him was that he looked like how he was going to act, which is like a very proper, calm but terrifying still character. And the other ones, he was just like this monster. And in this last form, he didn't behave like a monster, but that's what made him scary.
Hmm. So yeah, for me, again, I would give this like a I want to say like an 8.
Yeah, 8. That's fair.
Okay, and yeah. So again, for me, the reason the so Frieza is definitely better in my opinion than Cell, because Cell when Frieza, it was Frieza. Frieza one was the one that definitely carried because of the personality, because of how he looked, how he transformed. He was the main deal. And Cell and the Cell saga, again, for you, you're saying that Cell, the Gohan Cell moment was definitely important, which yes, again it was. But for me, it brought like it was the highlight was the Trunks 17-18 kind of
Uh,
debacle.
I don't know. I don't think that was for me. It wasn't the highlight. I feel like it was the it like what brought the story in, like what made it make sense.
But even when you conclude it, when you conclude the saga, you don't conclude it with Cell. It doesn't end with Cell. They still show. I mean, technically, if you want to go like super technical, it does, because Trunks goes back to the future, and then he fights 17 and 18, which is takes much longer to when he kills him than when he kills Cell. So he, yes, he does kill Cell at the very end, but it closes with Trunks going to the future or to his present, and then fighting 17 and 18. And for a lot of people, and if they didn't do that, a lot of people would be mad, because it's like, so you introduce Trunks, which again for me, if he is not the best Dragon Ball character, he is top 3 for me, because again, he looks super cool. He just absolutely destroys Frieza, cuts him like in 1,000 pieces. Um,
Blasts him out of existence.
yeah, and then he quote unquote gets tricked by King Cold. He gives him his sword, and then King Cold tries to kill him with his own sword, and
Because he
he
was convinced that
because he yeah, that was like
that
his
was the reason
power.
why he beat. Yeah, that's the reason why he beat Frieza.
Yeah, and no, he gets completely obliterated as well.
he's like as soon as he lands with the sword, like you just see Trunks smile and the instant fear, and then he's like, "No way!" Blasts him straight through the chest.
Yeah. Yeah, so definitely that I think that Trunks, with all that, they give him a closure. So that to me tells me a lot, that yes, I mean, for a lot of people also giving that closure, and closing with Trunks, tells you that a lot of people were interested about 17 and 18, to the point where 18 still continues to this date, and 17 continues to this date within Dragon Ball. And Cell, as of now, has yet to appear. Well, he technically appears in GT, but I mean, they don't do him a lot of favors there.
He appears again in the Majin Buu saga.
But when he appears, that's technically not canon, a non-canon because again, I think that that part wasn't actually in the manga where he like appears in and Hell.
Yeah.
Um, and there's like a lot of hints that that is not non-canon. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just that Cell is cool, and the mini cells and all of that. That's cool. But again, it's just for me, the androids was what brought the flavor and made the story like really good.
Well, yeah, of course, there's an essential part of it. I just don't think that they were the main part.
I mean, if I don't know, like for me, just Cell itself did seem like an extension of some, like they were trying to force it to like make it like bigger, kind of like resemble something like Frieza, to the point that the story is that he is part of the cells of Frieza and like all the other Z warriors. But it's just for me, again, Cell is cool, but the androids are like much more of an impact.
I guess I would agree because he does in that part. I agree because he's really just a copycat of uh of the other characters, and I feel that that's a very ununique idea. I felt like yeah, maybe it was rushed.
Yeah, so again, I like the arc as a whole. The arc as a whole was good.
I just think I don't know. I just thought that that was like a huge moment in the series
Oh yeah, I mean it definitely was.
was, was that.
That the Gohan moment, the dove flying, and the little kind of like light that like the spark that goes through him, and he does like the scream. Um, I don't know about the scream in English though. Did they change anything in the Kai thing?
Yeah, it was a lot better. Well, that and it was a different voice actor
Mm-hmm.
for the one in Kai, and what they did was basically more similar to the Japanese, um, a
The
higher pitched voice actor because the original one had a very raspy, she was trying to do more of a teenage, like an actual teenager,
mm-hmm.
and which wasn't, I guess, it wasn't true to the original voice actors. So with Kai, they changed out the voice of Gohan and made it more similar to the Japanese, which is the high pitched voice.
Does he still say, "And I won't stand this anymore"?
They don't do any mind talking
Oh,
for.
okay. Okay, that's cool.
No, they got rid of that completely.
Okay. So, yeah, but I mean that was definitely like a key moment. So yeah, I mean that was that was really really cool. The whole setup for that. But again, we go back and we didn't talk a whole lot about 16. And I mean context wise, 16 was very he was the trigger for that moment.
Yeah.
But I mean he really didn't have that much impact. I mean
He was kind of a forgettable character, and it kind of sucked because I thought he was cool. Like he was like a like
yeah he was good.
he was a cool design, and like he did do some cool things. Like he when he fought Cell, he like blasted him with like a ton of like turrets from his arm.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
I thought he did some cool stuff. I don't know.
he did pretty cool stuff, but they could have definitely done more with him.
Yeah, yeah, but I think that it was very fitting, like how they because he was like he was the calmest one, and then
Hmm.
he gets killed, and then he was just trying to be a good character. Like he
Hmm.
was originally created to be bad, but he wanted to be good, and then was killed. That's what I thought was like what made that moment.
Yeah, I did like 16, but it seems like yeah, if they and he did trigger the one of the well, the most important scene within the whole arc, but maybe just add a little bit more story or something else, but yeah, I mean, I did like the design and overall the character. I would give it like a 7.5 ish.
Yeah, 7.5. That's what I'd give it.
Okay, so we have been talking quite a bit about the Cell arc. took us what, like almost
Oh,
an hour.
yeah, it's an
So
hour.
let's go ahead and go with Majin Buu. And to be honest, for the Cell Saga, it was for me it was a lot to talk about because of the androids. For Majin Buu, it still has a lot of things to talk about, and I think we are still gonna extend it a little bit more. Um,
Did,
but
so did you want to leave Majin Buu for another? Because I feel like that's going to be an even longer one.
well, I mean, yes, yeah, you're right because there are definitely a lot of things to talk about Majin Buu.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
that one's a long one.
yeah, yeah, you're right. I was thinking at first maybe we could go ahead and go to the more important parts, but yeah, that would be a little bit rushed. So I guess change of plans then. Yeah, because we're definitely hitting the hour. So yeah, I mean, overall, um, I think well as of now for the whole saga, the Frieza saga is still the one that is the best in term of villains, but in sort of the story as a whole, I think that the Cell saga was better, but because of the androids.
Okay, well, I agree with most of that.
Well,
Um,
but I mean, were you not satisfied when
okay,
Trunks
Gladiator.
with like Trunks goes back to his future and like just obliterates the androids and he's like saying like in another time and well in the other timeline you were actually had a good heart and he just like destroys them. For me that's very satisfying because they're like so cocky and think like oh um it's the same Trunks, we're gonna do the same that we did to Gohan. And again, the Gohan in the other timeline is the best Gohan. The future Gohan?
He technically is the closest in design to the original to Teen Gohan.
No, no, but what I'm saying is, like, as a character, and because they actually saw things happen, so they didn't have, like, a happy ending, like, in so far in within uh, timeline.
Yeah.
It's so they change in personality. So if, like, the Gohan of our timeline, like yeah, he got a cool moment when he was a teen, but then what happens after that?
As an adult, he sucked. I hated him as an adult. I think they killed him as an adult.
I mean, I liked his I think what it's called ultimate form in
Yeah.
but
It was like
in Spanish it's called mystic form.
it is the mystic form. Yeah.
hmm So what again? We're getting a little bit into for the next podcast topic. Um, but overall, yeah, I mean, for me, that's what made it. Maybe it's just I don't know. I
I
don't.
mean, you don't. I mean, like I'm saying, like you don't
So
see the moment where
when did you watch the Trunk story? I think it's
um
also context wise because in Mexico they basically put them together. So when you were watching what was happening with the androids, I think it was in a different channel. But there was like a channel that would show Dragon Ball movies in the weekends, and they showed it there first. But it was around that same time, like the where the saga was developing. So when you saw it, you're like, oh, so this is why like Trunk is like how he is, and it put a lot more context. But if you didn't watch it like when it was happening, then obviously if you like watch it like 5 years later or 3 years later, it's not gonna have the same impact because there's not. I mean, you maybe don't even remember what happened exactly in the Cell saga, or you remember Cell, because that's what it was focusing during that time. But I
I
watched it all together.
I feel like, but see, that's the thing is like I feel like that's not just my opinion. Like in the people who grow up with it here,
hmm
like they don't really like Cell like the Cell Saga is like the best. Like that's literally what everybody in the American the majority of the American
Well,
pop.
yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, the Cell saga is really good, but I don't think it's good because of Cell. So I think it's good because of the androids. And
Ah, I don't think so.
no,
No, I just think that like that scene is what everybody remembers of like
well,
Gohan, the father son Kamehameha. Like that's literally what
yeah,
everybody remembers, not the androids.
and I agree with that. But I mean, they remember the moment, but it's not like, oh, because it's cool because of Cell, but it's cool because the all the situation, the android, the head was crushed. Uh,
Yeah,
that
that part, you're
yeah.
right about that part. You're right about that part. That android, his head being crushed, but like you don't remember 17 and 18 after they get absorbed.
Well, again, at least I did because, and a lot of people did because they included what happened after. If they were irrelevant or if people were not interested in the androids, they wouldn't. They would be like, okay, so a Trunks returns and that's it. Like he resolves and maybe
No,
do
well,
like a
I'm not
very
saying
brief recap of what he does after, right? But
I'm
instead,
not. Like I said, I'm not saying that they weren't important to the arc. I just think that they weren't the highlight.
I mean, I don't know. Like for me they were, and again, yes, the father son Kamehameha, the Gohan becoming like super serious, and that was super
And
important.
becoming the lead, which that kind of goes off topic, but that's what kind of the Buu saga took away, which is what Gohan had won in the Cell saga, which was becoming the main protagonist, taking the role of Goku.
And I think that the reason that you like that moment because I don't know still if Gohan is like your favorite character, but during
Oh,
that
yeah.
time, during when you were a kid, like you really liked Gohan a lot.
I still do. He's still my
Hmm.
favorite character.
Yeah, so maybe that's why it has like a higher impact, and like for me because I like Trunks so much, and I was so invested with Trunks because again in Dragon Ball you rarely see that they develop a story like so much. So
Yeah.
and again, it makes sense that in the U.S. it didn't have that much impact if they didn't show it like at the same time that they were showing the history of Trunks
Yeah,
at the
no, it
same.
was definitely it was definitely a more high the history of Trunks, all that stuff was kind of tossed aside.
Hmm.
Like it was shown, but
Hmm.
it wasn't shown with like the main show was the Cell Saga. Like
Hmm.
was that like that was what was mainly broadcasted and showed to everybody, and the history of Trunks was put on Toonami, but it wasn't on the main timeline. So it was just randomly put like, oh, here's this movie, and
And like the animation was so good, and also again the OST, the original soundtrack of Dragon Ball, like puts like um a lot of feeling to the moment. So like the animation is perfect, like the background music is perfect, and that's what like for me like made me super invested and I wanted to see what happened to the androids and how Trunks obliterated and destroyed those androids that like when like Gohan and again this is technically I believe this is canon because again I think that's the only movie slash OVA that is canon because they show like the whole full story and when like Gohan is just lying down dead
that
and
was
like
a big moment. Yeah.
and Trunks like wakes up and he's like, "Oh, well, Gohan, Gohan." Then he goes there and he sees him like dead and tries to like that moment, that transformation for me is like what has stayed with me like for so long.
Yeah, that's fair. I do remember that as being like a huge moment. I think like that moment was bigger than the like because Gohan's initial Super Saiyan transformation, it was eh.
Hmm.
So I think like in terms of the first Super Saiyan transformation, it was up there with the Goku's transformation because it was for the same reason, like their best friend was killed.
Okay, so yeah, we're going to conclude this. We did stray a little bit far away in this one, I guess because again, this is my brother's favorite saga, and for me, it is a very good saga because of again the androids. But yeah, I mean, thank you for watching. If you like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. leave any comments of any mistakes we made. We most likely did make a bunch of mistakes, so go ahead and leave your feedback.
Again, suggestions are always open. Leave it in the comments, and we'll see you next time.
Okay. Well, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a nice one.